sounds dumb. Like, just let me know.
Okay.
Okay, you're not even in. It's just me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you have to come closer because I can't move this mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I can.
I hate this place. Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being, patient with me right now. This has been a fucking nightmare right now.
It's all good.
Okay. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Alexis, and this is Irene. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Irene Velasquez, and I'm an LMFT. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm here with my good friend Alexis, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for being patient with all of this. You can see, this is a fucking nightmare here, and we're sweating because the AC is not working, and these mics aren't holding, so. It's a train wreck, but I'm excited to talk to you about your journey on how you got started in this therapy process. So give us a little background on your beginnings of all of it.
So I am born and raised mainly in Linwood, and then for half of my childhood, and then the other half in Highland Park. I think what really brought me to the field to be a therapist is honestly just growing up with a lot of adversity, not only in my own home, but also my community. And I didn't know about any resources. I didn't know about even what mental health meant or was. Yeah. And honestly, not even until I was an adult did I even know what therapy was. So I think for me, I've always been empathetic. I remember my mom telling me I would meet somebody and want to give them my toys and my clothes, and she would get so mad.
Yeah.
But I think I've always been a person that likes to hear somebody's story and really give them, I guess, encouragement and just let them know that I hold the space for them and that I'm going to be the person that listens to their story and that they matter. So I think I wanted to be in a field. I always knew I wanted to be a helper of some sort. I didn't know necessarily what. I didn't even think I would be a therapist. I didn't even know what a therapist was. But I am really happy that I got to be where I am today. And I want to give a voice not only to others, but I think it was really helpful for me to find my own voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what brought me here, seeing a lot of craziness. And being crazy too.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, definitely.
So you said you never had therapy as a kid or did you... Okay, so I know most therapists or some therapists have their own therapist.
Yes.
Do you currently have a therapist?
I actually don't, but I need one. So if you're a therapist out there, send me your info. No, but definitely I do encourage, I think therapy isn't necessarily, for certain situations, it could be something lifelong, right? If somebody has a chronic something severe, and not to put it in a negative way at all, by no means, but there is individuals who do need that long-term care.
Yeah, for sure.
But other than that, I think therapy is just a resource that is a support system that is there for you when needed, and when you don't need it, you don't have to go to it.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important for therapists to have their own therapist as well.
Yes.
So I am actually looking to go back into one, but my first time ever being in therapy, I want to say I was 23 when I first ever went to therapy, and I made the referral myself, and it was at Kaiser. It honestly wasn't the best experience.
Why?
Because for Kaiser, I don't know if things change, but you were only allowed to see your therapist once a month.
And my God.
So, yeah, and literally they would not see you unless you had any attempts. They wouldn't see you more than that or take you kind of seriously unless you had any hospitalizations you wanted to end your life.
You had to be really severe.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I know my boyfriend had Kaiser for a minute, and he... I didn't believe him, but now I believe him. He was like, I could only see my therapist once a month.
Yeah.
So I guess it's still like that.
Yeah.
He doesn't have Kaiser anymore.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I don't believe you. You're just lying. Yeah. So that's terrible. I've heard of bad things about Kaiser in general, and I had Kaiser myself too, and I didn't like it because I just had to wait on somebody to like make decisions for me in a way.
Yeah. And it's critical because that time, one individual, your mental health can change rapidly, right? So imagine them waiting, and then, even minutes can be like a life-threatening decision, just to wait.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm actually happy that Kaiser and many other insurance, because there's such a big need right now. They actually contract even private therapists, private pay therapists, or companies, because there's just such a big need right now. So I actually do have the majority of my clients actually do have Kaiser, like from Northern California or Southern. So it's getting a little bit better, but they still need to work on stuff.
It's a work in progress for sure.
Definitely.
I didn't start doing therapy till I want to say in like maybe 29 or 30, and I'm 31.
It's never too late.
It was definitely in my late 20s.
Yeah,
for sure. I want to think it was, and it was definitely just like it changed my life and opened my eyes to be more vulnerable, and also accept that I can't solve it all by myself, and I need to talk these things out, because I can't just like keep holding things in and suppressing things, because then that's like what creates more of your anxiety and depression.
Definitely.
How long did it take you to become an MFT, and like how did you know that was like your calling, your path? Like
it took me 7 years of school. I first, after I graduated high school, I went to Cal State LA for 4 years. I got my bachelor's in psychology. And then right after, I did my master's in clinical psychology, MFT, which was 3 years. But you could choose between 2 years, 3 years. And if you're really brave, you could do 1 year. But I don't know. I don't recommend. So I did the 3 years program. And then I just actually got fully licensed in February. It took me a little longer because I had to wait after I had my daughter. To gain all my hours, because you have to finish your hours. Now, the good thing about MFT is you can take the hours that you did in school. So I had about like 1,000, so I needed 2,000 more.
Okay.
But social work, you have to do all 3,000 hours outside after you graduate. So
wow.
It could, it depends how you work. It depends if you work in a place that gives you a certain amount of hours per week, or less or more, and then you have to pass test. But I'm really glad I did. There was a couple times, I'm telling you, I was like, I don't know about this. I think I'm gonna quit school.
Oh shit.
And I'm in school again. But it's a beautiful process. I would say, like, I also teach now, and I'm really happy that I teach like first, like I'm like their first semester, for future MFT students. And
so it's like an intro class?
It's intro to communication. So it's pretty cool. It's basically teaching them how to like improve and strengthen. But also I like to bring awareness to their own strengths and stories that they have. I like a lot of engagement. So the strengths that they have already, and how to increase and like learn new skills to enhance them. And I always like to say, not only yes, important to think about our clients. And of course, I want to help mentor them as future therapists, but also how can they use the skills with their own, in their own day-to-day with their kids, and model those skills and create those generational, changes, you know?
For sure.
So it's pretty cool. And yeah, I worked in different places like community mental health, the DMH site, so the Department of Mental Health places.
Ooh,
so I'm telling you, I was like, I don't know about this therapy stuff a few times. Yeah, but now currently I don't feel burnt out. I actually look forward to seeing
Good.
my clients. And I'm more in private practice. I do see clients that have like Medi-Cal, and that's always been something that's been really important to me, like regardless of where this field takes me, because you can make a lot of money in this field, but you can also be okay. And for me, I definitely don't want to be poor, but to me, I care more about, like, I've always cared about the community and giving back, and so I love the clients that I have right now, and it's just really beautiful to see that change with them, and for many of them, I'm their first therapist.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's awesome.
I'm like so fucking distracted. I saw a roach right now. Irene, I swear to God, the studio's never like this. It's like so embarrassing.
No, it's okay.
God damn.
It would be when I come in. What happened? It's alive?
It's still alive.
Oh.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, no worries.
Can you open your phone?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I think I have ADHD too. Were you diagnosed?
No, but I'm pretty sure I have it. My brother has it. It's more like a genetic, but if you feel like constantly restless, like it's kind of hard, you get overstimulated.
Yeah, I'm like clearly overstimulated.
Yeah.
Like I can't focus.
Hyperfixated and stuff, yeah.
Okay. Do you have so you're the therapist, do you have any advice on like how to like recollect and like refocus to the conversation?
I would say one of the biggest techniques that have been helpful is like a breathing technique.
Okay.
So also grounding yourself. So maybe, focusing on your senses right now. So what is 2 things that you see right now? Go ahead and describe them. And I want you to just name them.
Okay. That plug-in.
Okay.
And then that red little tab that's a color right now.
Okay, good job.
Thank you.
What is 2 things that you can smell? And go ahead and grab something if you want, and go ahead and just give it a little.
I can smell my perfume a little bit, and then also it's not like necessarily I can directly smell it right now, but I know because I didn't put deodorant on that I smell. I don't want to lift up my arms. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're paying attention to your senses, so you're doing amazing.
Okay.
What is maybe 2 things that you can touch, and I want you to go ahead and grab it, pick it up, touch it, and describe it in details, and take your time. No rush.
The mic is like fuzzy and like hard fuzzy.
What temperature is it?
It's
like
cold.
Cold? Okay.
Yeah.
What's something else that you can touch?
And then the table.
How does that feel? What's the texture like?
Smooth and a little bit of indents in the table.
Can you feel the patterns?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay, nice. What is one thing that you can taste? Go ahead and describe it. And if you want, just kind of play around with it. And
my gum is minty. That's all I could taste.
Minty.
Yeah.
What does it feel, the texture like as you're chewing?
It's just like soft and chewy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And lastly, what is something that you can hear? If you really focus, what is maybe, let's say 2 to 3 things that you can hear? What can you, as you pick up, what do you notice?
I could hear the AC. I think it is working.
What's something else? Good.
Just you.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like the wires that move.
The wires that move. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So that was a grounding technique. I mean, we did it pretty short, but basically grounding, mindfulness, many different names. It's a technique to help bring you to the present moment. Now, when we have like anxiety, call anxiety and depression like cousins. They're like cousins, you know?
Yeah.
They usually, when you have one, you're more than likely to have another. And we can get, usually with anxiety, we can tend to worry a lot about, usually more on the future, but we can also worry about the past.
Okay.
So when we take the moment to pause, especially with ADHD, it's hard for those pauses.
Yeah.
So just forcing in a gentle way those pauses to bring your awareness on the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you do have ADHD, one of the biggest things that was helpful for me is to have breaks.
Okay.
Have breaks and schedules. That's going to be like your main recipe to survive. Because what happens is we get, like, I heard I'm doing an internship, and the doctor talked about, like, boredom is our kryptonite. You know, so when we get bored, it's like, oh no. So we'll avoid things as much as possible to get started on those boring things, right?
Like
or boring meetings and stuff. Yeah. And breaks. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique. So I definitely recommend checking that out. Okay. I will send it to you.
For sure.
But breaks for sure. 100%.
Yeah. So have you struggled with any of those like disorders?
Yeah. I'm diagnosed with MDD, which is major depressive disorder, clinical depression, if you will. I have struggled all my life with it. I have anxiety too, but it's more mild, I would say. I would say the depression is more severe. So also what brought me to being a therapist is my own struggles, right? We all have our own story and our own, challenges and whatnot. But I had a really long battle with like having SI, which is like suicidal ideation, like plans, attempts, things like that. And that's something that also runs in my family. My bio dad, he passed away, unfortunately, by taking his life when I was in college. So for me, that was a topic that was really like, I didn't want to touch it. I was like, let me stay away from, clients. If they said like, I don't want to be alive, I was like, what do I do? Like freak out, panic. But I've learned to manage my own, my own worries or my own countertransference and transference, we call it in therapy. And not that I want anybody to feel like that, but I'm able to help my clients that do have that. And what I like to tell them is, I don't want this to be a place where you feel like you can't tell me your honest feelings. Even for my mothers that have like postpartum depression, that's something that I experience as well. I want this to be a safe space where if you are having those thoughts and so forth, where you can talk to me about it and I can support you.
Right.
And I let them know, like, we're all human. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Even, you may see me as this professional and whatnot, but I've also been through things, and I know, like, I'm not going to blame you for not being perfect. Perfection is a myth. That's one of the affirmations that me and my clients go over, because a lot of times we can feel shame, we can feel guilt, especially with the topic of suicide. So a lot of times people will say, well, why do you feel like that? You have everything, or your life's so good, or
you're just being ungrateful.
Yeah, or you just want attention. That's like, those are like common things, but there's so many layers to it. It's not just a black and white answer. It's there's gray.
There's definitely a lot of chemical imbalances.
Oh, 100%.
Some of it is like genetic.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
So it's like, I think someone can develop those, I guess like those symptoms, but also like some of it is genetic and some of it's learned. Some of it's what we learned from the people that raised us.
Yeah.
And how they cope with the world. So naturally we learned how to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. 100.
I wanted to talk about like thoughts, because I know thoughts can be overwhelming and scary, and nobody likes to actually really talk about their thoughts and how sometimes those thoughts, we think we need to identify ourselves with those thoughts, but then in reality, like, thoughts are just thoughts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
What's your experience on what you've gained in knowledge about just like thoughts?
Well, it's definitely not like a one answer type of thing for sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of our thoughts come from our subconscious, right? Whether that's experiences that we personally had, things that maybe we seen on TV, things that we heard, things that we've seen from others. It comes from somewhere. And a lot of times, I can't say for everybody, obviously everybody's different,
Right.
but our thoughts, I really like to work with my clients on like healing, of course, and self-love. So what I'd like to tell them is, we're our own worst critic, and sometimes we can hear that criticism in our head, but even though it's our voice, it's not us. It's a voice that we've heard from somebody else, like
Yeah.
a teacher, a parent, a partner. And our mind is so powerful that when we hear something, even though we can hear it one time, be like, that's absolutely false. That's not true at all. The more that we hear it, the more we believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually starts to feel real. Like,
yeah.
there is actually, when we really believe something truly, we'll actually feel it in our body. It's pretty interesting and crazy, but, it's kind of reminds me of like, natural selection in a sense where we adapt to our environment, right? So really, when we are having challenging thoughts, I think there is power in education. So the more somebody knows like what's going on, like their symptoms, I like to call them behaviors.
Yeah.
I don't really like to use a lot of clinical words unless
Yeah.
it's like necessary. But the more somebody is really connected to themselves, the more they're able to heal better and understand without feeling like there's something wrong with me, and normalizing, and letting them know you're not alone.
Yeah.
And this is actually very common. And actually, in fact, a lot of my clients are like, wait, this is common? And I'm like, yeah, like this is like, there's a lot of people that experience this. Obviously, you have your own personal, unique experience, but you're not alone,
Yeah, I find myself saying things to my therapist and she's like, that's normal. And I was like, really? I thought I'm just like this monster and like I'm the weirdo who's just thinking all these thoughts. And I'm like, before I think I used to be more hesitant to just like share these thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I felt like they aligned with me and that was me. I convinced myself to think that these thoughts were me. But one of the things that my therapist tells me to do is to remind myself what my values are. And I think that's important when people are trying to distinguish if their thoughts are them or if it's just a thought.
Yeah, definitely. There's this term in therapy, DBT therapy, it's called radical acceptance. So it's kind of just acknowledging your thought and not going into any judgment about it, like not saying it's right or wrong or judgment about yourself, but just acknowledging it. I like this example that this therapist used where it's kind of like if that thought's in here, it's on your forehead and it's kind of like taking it and saying like, hi, like, just acknowledging the thought and letting it pass on by, right? So I think there is power in acknowledging your thought, processing what you're feeling, and definitely learning how to use strategies and skills. We call it in therapy somatic skills, about learning how your mental health and your body is like connected, right? So sometimes we have experiences and we feel like, I forget, for whatever reason. Maybe it was a shock to protect you. Maybe it's been so long that you're like, I forgot like what happened, right?
Yeah.
But your body always remembers. So teaching clients how to regulate their nervous system, super important and super helpful for healing.
Yeah. My therapist actually just did that with me yesterday. I was telling her about something and she asked me to repeat whatever I was saying, but to close my eyes and find where in my body do I feel this, where is it affecting at the moment as I repeat. And I found myself, that wasn't the first time she's done that, but it's more like yesterday was the first time I actually paid attention to my body.
Yeah.
And I paid attention to where it was where I was feeling it the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I told her, I was like, this is like the first time when you asked me that, I was able to tell you like where I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
And she was saying how that helps with like healing the body. You know, I've heard, just to jump into something else, but like stay on the same track. I've heard that when people go through trauma or stress or anxiety or depression, they have these they have the pain somewhere in their body. And sometimes it stays there. And when they don't release it, it gets stuck, and that sort of also develops diseases.
Yeah, definitely 100%.
Yeah, you've heard of that before.
There's a study, it's called the ACEs study. And basically, it's about life experiences that one can have. And if you have experienced, I believe there's 12 experiences, but if you have the more experiences that you have, basically, the more likely you're going to have health conditions and chronic ones. So what medicine and, you know, doctors and therapists are trying to, hopefully one day they can get it together, but what they've been trying to work on is finding a way, and I think that they are doing better, to acknowledge, you know, in your doctor's appointments, they'll do the PHQ-9, which is a depression basically survey. They'll do the GAD-7, which is an anxiety survey, and they'll connect individuals to therapy. I mean, when I take my daughter to her doctor's appointment, they do it every time for me. And then they ask me about her. Obviously, it's my observation from her, but that's something that I notice now that is definitely something that I didn't have when I went to the doctors growing up as a kid. Like, they didn't do those surveys.
That's really important that they do that.
So more referrals to getting individuals those resources, like the therapy that they need. And really, it's super important to have that awareness of the body because, as you mentioned, trauma does get stored in our body. And without being able to process it and even recognize it, it can do a lot of damage.
Has somebody ever told you, like, I don't think we should continue?
I've had a few clients that, like, not a lot. Usually, I'm
good.
I get a good fit, and I think my style is pretty like good. But anyways, have gotten a few where like I didn't see them after the first session, and I said like got a rematch, and I was like okay. But I let my clients know like I don't take it personal. Like if there's something that I'm doing that you don't like, I even tell them like if you're like Irene, you're talking too much or this is boring, like please let me know.
Yeah.
I let them know, you know, I may not be a good fit for you, or you may feel that, and that's okay to acknowledge that. And it's a safe space where, you know, I don't take it personal, and I want you to tell me, you know? And I think that that's empowering, you know, because sometimes you can feel like, I know personally for me, when I get like a dentist or a doctor, I will like stick with them forever. And I'm like, even if I don't like them or I don't know, like, just like, I just need I don't know. I just say, but now, you know, I'm like, it's okay. It's okay to change your doctors, your dentist, whoever it is that you're working with. I'm
like the opposite. I literally don't waste time. And I'm like, in the last year or the year before, I had changed dentists like at least 5 times.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you're not a good fit. You don't accept my insurance. Like, you're not doing this right.
Yeah.
And you talk to me a certain way.
And it is like that. But I think it's empowering, right?
With therapists, I would say that I'm a little more open to, just because I hate having to be vulnerable and explain and tell about myself. And then to start all over for me, it's very exhausting.
Yeah. No, thank you for bringing that up, because that is something that I get told a lot. And, you know, I have a lot of empathy for my clients because for a lot of times, some of them, it's like I'm their fifth therapist. Like, I don't know, something unfortunately happens to their therapist where they like leave the job, or for whatever reason, or they go on a medical leave or something happens, and then they're like, No, I'll make it work. Like I literally have clients that will meet me before work during their lunchtime, like whenever, because they're like, no, I want to stay with you. And I take that as a serious like honor because I'm like, one, we're doing great work and they're working, I'm supporting them in what they need. But two, like I want to keep the continued care. We call it continued care. So, and I know it's hard. It's hard to make those appointments. It's hard to open up to a complete stranger. You get that connection and relationship, and then they're like, "Well, I'm sorry, I gotta go." And I know life happens sometimes, but I keep that in my mind. It's like therapy is like one of those jobs where you're like, you can't, like, it's not,
you
like, you have to
leave.
think about, you have to think about your clients, obviously in a healthy way, but you're like, I can't just like leave and not come back or not tell you what's going on. Right?
For sure. I had my last therapist, I think he said he was leaving the company or something that he was in, and that he wasn't going to be my therapist anymore. It made me feel kind of sad because I'm like, whoa, like, I feel like you're kind of just abandoning me.
Yeah.
And at the point, I feel like our therapy was already coming to an end anyway. I was only seeing him like once every other week or something. But I had that attachment to him where I was like, wow, like, I don't want to start all over.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, you get these types of attachments sometimes with people, like you as a patient, and then like your therapist, I'm sure also gets like maybe some ways like attached in the same way too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm like, the clients will be like, no, because I've had, schedule changes, and they're like, no, I'll make it work. Like, what do you have open? Like, I'll figure something out. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, even more like it's just shows you also the importance, because I've had a couple clients that would go like have family emergencies. Like I just had a client recently. They hadn't seen me in some time, and they're like, I was really going through it. Like, I was so sad that I couldn't get an appointment with you because I was really going through it and I really need to see you. And then it's like, I always say like it's an honor because, I'm supporting them with serious things that are going on in their life. And, being a therapist is a beautiful thing, but it's also a very serious thing because you're basically like responsible for all of these lives.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely, I'm sure it can take a toll on you too.
Oh yeah, 100%. It can. We go therapists. We can get burnt out. Burnout in all careers, right? But for therapy, there's this term called vicarious trauma, where it basically means like, say you're talking to somebody and they've had something traumatic happen to them. You can almost feel the dysregulation or what they're going through, even though you didn't experience that specific thing yourself. So taking care of yourself, self-care is super big for everybody, especially therapists, because we hear so many things. For a lot of times, it's an honor, like I said, but we're the first of the first. There's been so many clients that I'm the first and maybe only person that knows certain things about them. And I think it's really cool, though, how I build that connection and trust with them, and I really create a safe space for my clients. And I think the most beautiful part that keeps me going to be a therapist is seeing their progress, like seeing them. I call it graduation when they end therapy. Seeing their progress, having them accomplish their goals. We use data in a lot of my work, so they can literally see visually. I'm a visual learner, so I like that too. They can see like when they came to me and it was like up here, like okay,
their high points.
Yeah, their high points, and then now when we got them to like a good baseline, right, where they can manage it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's something. I guess I have anxiety because I feel like. So in your 30s, I feel like you get these, I don't know I think a lot of people could relate, but you get like anxiety. You get like, maybe I've had some panic attacks where I'm just like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't I'm just like doubting myself and I'm questioning myself, especially for me, because you have these goals of like, I don't want to be poor. And so you're like, okay, so what am I doing to not be poor?
Yeah.
And for me, I wasn't in school for a long time. So I felt like, well, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what am I doing? What do I even want to do?
Yeah.
You know? And so that was really hard for me, especially at 30 and especially as a woman, because when you don't have kids at 30, you also start to have this like panic or like this fear of like, do I want kids? Like, do I not want kids? And it's like, I only have like a certain amount of time to like really make that decision. And there's like that pressure.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I want to get all this done first before like I can have a kid. And I just like overwhelmed myself with all these thoughts, and it was kind of like really scary. And I want to get like down to, I think like I'm normalizing it and regulating it, but I want to get down to like a baseline of where I'm just like able to manage it on my own, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. That's actually really common. I talk about this a lot with my clients, and I know I have a daughter, but I did wanted a second baby, but now life is different. So, but I think you are 100% right. I think acknowledging it and processing in it, and that does a lot. And just even knowing that life now is way different than back then. I mean, back in the day, I don't know, they were like 14, getting married, having kids. Like I don't know I don't know why, but and even if we think about our grandparents, our parents, like life was just much different back then. Price wise, the economy was different. Now it's much more common to see women, if they choose to have kids, of course, to have kids much later. When you think about that question, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? That's hard.
Yeah, right? It's
overwhelming. It's very common now where you'll see people have more than one career. Even for what I do right now, there's I've met a lot of people that used to be lawyers, that were even doctors, nurses, and now they're like, I don't want to do that no more. I want to be a therapist. And so people always can change their careers, and that doesn't make you any less than or any of those negative things that we can tend to call ourselves.
Yeah,
everybody's journey is different, and I know we hear it all the time, but it is true. So I think, for you, just acknowledging it, I would say, I don't know if you've ever tried journaling, but journaling is really powerful.
It is.
It can be really powerful.
I thought about that the other day. I was like, I haven't journaled in a while. I do have a journal, and then it does help me like get some thoughts out. Just like before I feel like something's about to like boil. So you're right. Journaling is really important. Another thing that my therapist has also tried to help or mentioned to me that helps is like repeating to yourself that maybe these thoughts are real, maybe they're not. Or maybe you do know what you're going to do with your life, or maybe you don't. Like, that's okay. You don't need to decide right now.
Definitely.
And
definitely.
that's supposed to like help reduce anxiety for people.
Yeah, reframing those thoughts, right? There's a lot of different, we call it like unhealthy or unhelpful thinking patterns. Like we have catastrophizing, we have black and white thinking. There's a big list, but anyways, just reframing your thoughts. I think processing and acknowledging it, right? Like there's a lot of power of saying it out loud. We can say it in our head, and not that that's wrong, but there's a lot more power when you say it out loud.
True.
And even more so when you write it down. I don't know the research exactly, but there's a lot of research that when you actually use a pen and paper and write it, it helps your brain process it better.
Okay.
And
yeah, that makes sense.
What I have my clients do is I have them do a body scan. So from their head to their toes, what do they notice? Where do they notice? Describe it. Is there any thoughts and feelings? I'll have them write it down. And then I have them do a rating. So from 0 to 10, what number do you feel like you're at?
Mm-hmm.
0 meaning I'm super great, I'm amazing. A 10 is like I'm in immediate distress, I need help as soon as possible. And then I let them choose. You know, do you want to freestyle? Do you want to just write out? Or maybe some of my clients, you need a template. Everybody's different. Then after that, they do one of the somatic skills that I teach them, like butterfly tapping or some kind of belly breathing or other type of skill. And I think that that's powerful because it's helping them have being empowered to verbalize their feelings and recognize their feelings and thoughts, but 2, they're going to process it. And then they're going to learn how to regulate their nervous system. And then they could come back and say, well, you know, that was a little bit silly, or that was, now I'm feeling better about that. Or, I think I need to do like problem solve on this because it is a concern for me, or whatever the situation is. Right. But really, the power of therapy is there's so many types of therapy. I'm trained in EMDR. I'm a newbie at it, so I'm not the best, but
EMDR is which one?
It's for eye movement desensitization.
I've heard of that one. How do you do that?
Oh, that one's hard to explain. But basically what happens, that's mainly specifically for trauma. Okay. So basically, when somebody experiences a trauma or traumas, we go back to that memory. We teach them skills. We call it resourcing, so coping skills and like those somatic techniques first before we use the actual techniques. And basically, we walk them through that traumatic memory. Now, when we experience traumas, we were talking about thoughts earlier, right? So we can create what it's called our negative core beliefs. So, for example, maybe Stacy seen her parents argue growing up. They had a DV relationship, and that really impacted her with her, her self-esteem. And so based on what she's seen and what she experienced, her negative core belief was the world is not I am not safe.
Yeah. Okay.
The world is not a safe space. So she's very hyper vigilant, et cetera, et cetera. So basically what I do in EMDR is we walk through one of her earliest memory where she felt I am not safe. And now she has the skills to feel safe. She has the skills to regulate her nervous system. So it's almost like putting on that movie clip on the projector, but now you have the skills to reprocess it. And there's a whole technique where we literally will reprocess it in your brain. So now it's not dysregulating.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean it won't be difficult. It won't be like, yeah, I'm so happy that I experienced that, you know, but she'll be able to say, I did see that growing up, and she can go on with her life and be okay.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like I've heard that before. My therapist has also mentioned to me that in trauma, you can correct me because I don't know about the brain that much. I think that the trauma sometimes stays from PTSD. It stays in your amygdala. Does that sound right? And so that's why you have triggers, because when you see a trigger or you experience a trigger, your amygdala senses if it's in fight or flight and automatically thinks that it's in danger. When it's not necessarily in danger, you're kind of just triggered and thinking about this memory from the past.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So we have two things. We have perceived danger, right? Where is let's say with that same example with Stacy seeing her parents in that relationship. So maybe when she hears somebody with a loud tone of voice, it senses that alarm, her fight or flight mode is activated, and she's like, danger, danger. Maybe this person, just has a loud voice. That's her tone of their voice. They're not mad at her. They're not yelling at her, but she perceives it as danger. So she can either turn into flight, okay, I'm going to leave away from this person and run away. And sometimes it's literal. Sometimes they will literally run away, or they'll just get away avoid the situation.
Right.
Or two is freeze. She may get stuck. She may dissociate, or flight. I'm sorry, I did say that one already. She fight where she may get defensive and want to argue, let's say, with this person,
Right.
or physically fight this person. Um, and then there's the real danger. So if we're camping, right? If Stacy's camping and there's a bear outside, okay, her system should get activated because that is an actual danger where she does need to use those skills to protect herself.
Right.
So our fight or flight. Oh my God, I'm getting confused right now. Our fight, flight, and freeze response is something that we all have in us, and it's a survival skill.
For sure.
Right? We need it.
I read or heard or something about freeze being, or like freeze and do nothing are like newer add-ons to this fight or flight thing.
Oh, I haven't heard that, but I have heard, there is a new one that I've learned about, and it's called fawning. We never talk about fawning.
That's what I mean for do nothing.
Oh, okay.
The
fawning is actually, we call it when you have people-pleasing behaviors. Okay. So let's go back to the same example with Stacy with her mom and her dad. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say they both parents had a temper and both individuals put hands on each other, yelled at each other and whatnot. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Stacy, she learned how to survive in her household if she gave mom let's say hugs, and she listened to whatever mom said.
She did all her chores.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And mom was happy. So because she learned how to basically do things to make these individuals happy, she then does it with other people because she wants to avoid hearing that loud tone, getting into conflicts, making others, she has a lot of fear of making others, quote unquote, like unhappy. Or even if they're not happy, like maybe she sends a text to a friend and the friend didn't reply right away, she may feel like, oh my God, does this friend not like me? And do people not like me? So we call that fawning.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because that goes into like people that have people-pleasing disorders, people that have... I also watched a video not that long ago about that people pleasers are also have similar traits to narcissists. Yeah. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't done a lot of research on it, honestly, but there is some areas that kind of like collide are very similar.
Right.
Because when we think about a narcissist, they're very they manipulate a lot. And they gaslight a lot. And you know, they want to be seen as a good person by others. Like ego is very big with them, right? So in a sense, I think a narcissist, the way that they are a people pleaser, is not necessarily maybe in some ways to the person that they're victimizing, right? Where they kind of want to keep them in this cycle, getting whatever it is that they want from this person. But more so, for society and others in their life, they want to be seen as, I don't know what this person is talking about. I'm great. I'm an amazing person. Like this person, they're crazy. They made this relationship not work, right? They don't take that accountability, right? Sure. Their image.
Have you ever had thoughts that you were a narcissist?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, I've had thoughts.
No, I have not. I had thoughts that I dated for sure.
Narcissists? I've had thoughts like, I have like anxiety and I've diagnosed myself with a lot of things. And being a narcissist just happens to be one of the things that I didn't diagnose myself with it, but I thought like, am I a narcissist? Like I've had that thought.
But why did you have it? What came up for you?
I don't know. Okay, so for me, I'm like, I feel like I'm a very hyper vigilant person. I feel like I'm very self-aware. I feel like I'm just overall aware and observant of others. So therefore, I find it easy to be able to, if I wanted to, not that I choose to do this, but I find it easy to be able to read people and manipulate people and know how to manipulate people.
Yeah, yeah.
And that almost makes me feel guilty. Not that I use that to take advantage of people, but it makes me feel guilty that I know that I have that ability to do that.
But see, what makes you different is you know that you have the ability to do it, and you can process that without
it just
like
scares me sometimes.
I think it's a normal thing.
Okay.
Because I mean, I could tell you when you are somebody that is really connected with yourself, like I heard you say, like you're really in tune and aware. You have that awareness. So because you're so in tune with yourself, it's easy for you to identify things from others and like learn about them through their body language, their tone, et cetera, right? So because of that, you can use that, and you can use it for the manipulation, but obviously you're not. and when you are an individual that has those qualities or strengths or whatever you want to call it, I would say it's a strength, and it just means you have good like people skills, and you're really connected to yourself. And you also most likely have a lot of, which I know you, so I know that you do have a lot of empathy as well.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes, I'm a believer that we have a lot of skills, especially like in our culture. Like I come from healers, like people that did like natural
Like
remedies and
spiritual
stuff.
healing.
So I feel like we all have our own kind of gifts, I guess you can call it. And that may be something that you have. Like I know personally, I also can do that as well.
Okay.
But
You have the power to.
but obviously I don't. But it's, a lot of people, they don't have those really deep connections. And it doesn't have to be like you guys are like best friends, but even a conversation that can be powerful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure there's been people that were like, I'm so happy that like we talked, or like, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Or things like that. Right.
For sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of power that we have in our relationships, whether it's a mutual relationship, whether it's a, just a one-time occurrence talking to somebody. There's a lot of impact that we have with what we share and how we share it with others.
For sure. I agree with that. Yeah, I just like, sometimes I like ask things because I also am like, well, maybe if I had this thought, maybe someone else had this thought, but you just straight up were like, no, it's just you.
And I think what could happen sometimes with that thought is, especially with anxiety,
Yeah.
we can tend to like overthink and overanalyze, because sometimes, especially with anxiety and ADHD, we need to have like things kind of planned or structured or prepared, because if things are like out
Chaotic.
of control,
Yeah.
it feels chaotic, and
Yeah.
and our brains have a hard time with that a lot.
For sure.
Like surprises and things like that are like, no.
I actually don't mind too many. I don't know. I'm like
certain
thinking
ones,
about
maybe
it.
certain ones.
I'm
Yeah,
like, there are some surprises I don't fucking like.
Like if you go to your house and your partner has a whole party there, like, I don't know, are you gonna like it or not?
I wouldn't mind. Honestly. I wouldn't mind. It depends, but also depends who's there.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. It depends on the surprise,
For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But let's go back to people pleasing. Have you come across like people that you know in your life that are people pleasers?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I know I definitely used to be one of those people pleasers. I would say more when I was younger.
Okay.
And maybe you could be a people pleaser even with specific relationships. So I think for me, what has been helpful was learning to, one, acknowledge how I felt, being able to process it, but also number one, enforcing like boundaries in my life, right? Like I used to be somebody that like if my friends always told, or loved ones always told me something, I'll be like, yes, and I would want to be like the rescuer.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, no, it's okay to say no. It's okay, like if I'm tired or I can't, or you don't even need to really have a reason, but just having those boundaries. There's so many different boundaries, but I feel like that is helpful not only for your own like well-being, but also you get to model that technique with your loved ones. So I had to do that with my mom and that was hard, but I think it was helpful for her and for me, because my mom, I love her to death, but she would just like tell me everything that was going on with her and like her worries. So then I became very hyper vigilant because I was always constantly worried about my family. And then I'm like, I'm a therapist. Like, I hear worries, I hear all these things, and then I got my own personal things in my life. So I became very hyper vigilant. I like struggled to sleep, to eat. Like, I just felt like it just made me in a weird space. So I really had to put those boundaries of like my time that I would see her, make sure I was in a good spot, but also what she shared with me. And it was really hard to do. But
do you live with your mom right now?
No, I don't live with my mom, but I see my mom often.
Okay.
We have a weird relationship, but I am close to her. But she has her moments. But
for sure, all
yeah, definitely. But I think it helped her too because she'll tell me stuff and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, mija. I know you're going to therapy. Okay, I'm not gonna tell you no more." And then I don't want to stress you. I don't want to tell you. And I'll be like, "Okay, tell me."
That's
so
good.
yeah, so she's gotten a lot better, and I'm really proud of her for that because I know. She didn't teach us about mental health, but I know her parents didn't teach her either,
Yeah, and it's not their fault.
Yeah, and it's not their fault.
I feel like our parents were in the generation of being in like survival mode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so I think like with us, we have these advantages of like figuring ourselves out.
Yeah.
And not being like them.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And it also made me really happy like coming in this field because now, like, we do talk about mental health and she does recognize it, and others in my family, they've had, other loved ones, like their kids or themselves go to therapy. So, and we have conversations about like, other loved ones that we've had and like, oh, I think that they were struggling, and it doesn't become like don't tell nobody or, it comes like a conversation, like, let's talk about it, so
yeah,
I really think that that's beautiful. And that's what creates the change in our families. Right. So now with my daughter, if she needs therapy, which I actually did take her to one session, but she didn't need it no more. But anyways, we talk about those things. We, I'm going to be able to teach her things that I didn't know. Yeah. And then she's going to teach her kids if she chooses to have kids or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Other things, each generation, I think as long as we do a little bit better, we bring some change.
For sure.
That's beautiful.
I agree. Yeah. And I feel like I relate to you when you said that you had to put boundaries with your mom, because I think I did too. There was just a lot of things where I felt like I was the rock and I felt like I was being told things that maybe I shouldn't have been told.
Yeah.
Or maybe I was just carrying all that weight. Mm-hmm. And even though she got to release it, I didn't.
Yeah, because it stayed with you.
I couldn't. I was younger, so I didn't have a therapist, and I was like, well, my mom also doesn't want me to tell people things and just like talk about things because that's her generation of be like not wanting to talk about things.
Yep.
And so I carried on that weight and just like not knowing what to do with it. And I don't know, like, I think I'm glad that I realized it now, but I did have to tell her, like, don't tell me these things. Because I'm also very, like, I feel like I'm a sensitive person. So I carry things with me. And when people tell me these things, like, I feel the pain. And I feel like...
that vicarious trauma.
Yeah. So I feel like that pain and I carry it with me. And it's okay to do that, but not all the time. And also just like be aware of what you're doing to people when you're telling things sometimes.
Definitely. One thing that one thing that I learned myself and I teach my clients is do check-ins with your loved ones. If you want to tell them something or vice versa, saying, hey, like, I want to check in with you about something, but do you have that mental space or is it okay to talk to you about something, I don't know, that is in depth or something difficult.
Ask for consent.
And no, seriously. And that's so amazing because I caught myself personally doing that to my friend who's a therapist, and I was like, hold on, let me go tell her right now. She knows all the skills. So I was just like, and then I paused and I was like, hold on. I'm not even like like checking in with her about how she's feeling, how she's doing, if it's even okay. I'm just like whoop, like word vomit,
For
like
sure.
telling her stuff. And so I apologize to her. And she's one of my best friends. Her name's Desiree.
Shout out
Desiree. And you know, she's so amazing, and I learned a lot from her. But anyways, you know, that really helped me learn that skill to do, like, practice what I preach, you know?
Right.
And
sure.
it was helpful for me because not only did I get to learn and correct myself, but she was a safe person that I was able to practice these skills.
Right.
So that's something I also tell and recognize with my clients is when we're learning skills in therapy, it could be bittersweet because we're learning things about ourselves, and we're also maybe most likely using these skills with others in our life.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they may be receptive, sometimes they may be not. Sometimes we lose people along the way, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But practice these skills with safe people. They definitely can practice it with me in sessions, but outside, you know, practice it with whoever that safe person is for them. And I think that that's important.
I agree. I think also another thing that I've learned so much this year, because I feel like this is the year that I've been in like my most intensive therapy, that I've really just focused on myself. And I feel like I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. You're saying that you learned a lot this year and about yourself. And you went through a lot.
Yeah, I was just like learning about myself because I didn't realize how much anxiety I had. And I didn't realize that I barely recognized this anxiety this year in my life. And all these past years, I've just been like not accepting that it's anxiety. So this year was like my year to recognize, like, okay, this is anxiety and I don't know what to do. And it's at this point where I'm like having a panic attack, and I've never experienced this. But looking back, like, I've had moments in my life where I've had anxiety. I just like kind of suppressed it and didn't accept that it was anxiety because I probably also got so used to anxiety from a young age, maybe. And then you grow up and you're just like thinking everything's normal, and then it's like it's not.
It's not. Yeah, that is so funny that you say that, because I remember like when I was growing up and I would tell my friends like, oh, I seen this and this and this, and they would be like, what the heck? What's going on in your house? Okay, what is there's something wrong? My teachers would be like, oh, we're gonna send you to the counselor. You know, but
for sure.
you know, whatever our environment in life is, it's our norm. So we learn to adapt and survive in it because we need to. And a lot of times, you know, we're on go, go, go mode, especially like in society is very fast now, fast paced, especially LA, right?
For sure.
So we learn skills to adapt, whether they're maladaptive or not. Basically like negative coping skills or positive ones. We just learn what works for us in that environment and we go with it.
Yeah.
So when we go through healing, it's like putting that pause and really like putting a pause and really reflecting and acknowledging like, hold on. Those moments of realization, like, this is not normal. This is not okay. We're not in that dissociation no more.
For sure.
Right. And it could be really hard to have those, like, to put that mirror to your face and acknowledge things, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
You know?
Yeah, I'm also like learning how important it is to be present, to be here. Because like you're saying, disassociating, like it's a term that I've experienced, but I didn't accept that that's what was happening. And so I feel like I'm recognizing all these things that I do, and it's about like rewiring your brain to like be where you want to be and with more compassion too. I think a lot of my life I was just go, 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 survival, trying to get out of whatever I'm trying to get out of, and not taking a moment to be present and give myself compassion for things that I've accomplished, for things that I've done for myself, for people. Like, we are our own worst critic, and we're our own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have that compassion in your brain, then it'll eat at you.
Oh yeah, 100.
And it'll get you to like dark places that you don't deserve to be at. You know.
I always teach my clients about what is the difference between sympathy and empathy, because a lot of times people think that they're the same, but they're very different.
Right.
And empathy, it builds more nurturance, more connection. And I always like to tell them it's a good skill to have where you use it with others, and others obviously use it with you, but you have to remember to give it to yourself.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Self-love. Building your self-esteem, working on that is super important, and it takes time. And I always like to say healing is not linear. It's not a straight line. We got some ups and downs. We come back around.
For sure.
It could look a mess, you know. Yeah. And so coming back to that affirmation, perfection is a myth, and we learn from our mistakes, and we get better. And sometimes there's a little regression, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just taking the time to acknowledge it, take that accountability, and then come back up.
For sure. Right? Like, make sure you come back up.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Hold on. We got to pull you back in.
Yeah, for sure. There's times where I'm just like, how the fuck am I going to get to my baseline? Like, I don't know. It's been a journey for sure. And that's why I really wanted to do this episode with you. Because I see you're doing so many things, and it's good for yourself, and you're helping others, and that's what you want to do. And I also see your business that you were doing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're still doing that right now. Okay. Yeah. Which is also really cool. I've mentioned that to you before, like when you first started. And so can you go into a little bit about it, and then we'll see if we can get into a little more mental health stuff? Yeah,
definitely. So my business is Familia Organics, and I make handmade skincare products. But really, one, there's two main reasons why I decided to do that, and it kind of just was a thought that kind of just expanded. So when I was actually doing my MFT program, I was like, okay, I don't want to work so much. I need a break. So I started doing facials, and I would make like my own products for my clients that were fresh, and I would give the remainder of the product to my clients, and they would ask me like, hey, can you make more, because it's really helped me, and I'll pay you. And I was like, what? Like, people actually want this? Okay. Because it would just be like one of the things that I'm good at, crafts. I mean, I'm not Picasso, so I can't, as much as I want to paint and draw, I just don't know how. But anyways, and for me, it was beautiful because I would have my clients with, whatever skin conditions they had. It would really affect their mental health, and it really does, right? Sure. And sometimes I always like to say, check in on how you're feeling, not only outside but also inside, because they go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And so it was really nice to make things that were good for people, that were natural, and to create this community with my clients. I mean, wow, I have created such good relationships with them. I've been with them for like 5 years, and it's pretty crazy because we have built a community where I do talk about mental health issues with them. Mm-hmm. When I do have them for pop-ups or services or whatnot, we really get into these in-depth conversations where they don't really have these conversations with others. Mm-hmm. I am a safe person for them, and vice versa. And it's just really nice to build these I like to say, plant these seeds for them to continue these conversations with their loved ones. And it's even more cute when they get these products and then they're sharing it with their family members, their kids. And so, I like skincare too, because not only is it good products that they're getting, but they're also having bonding time, and they are learning how to take care of themselves. True. And how to have that awareness. So it's I could go on and on, but that's my business. I'm starting to get into it again. I'm excited. It's just with school and everything that I got going on, it's hard, but I don't think it's something I could ever let go of, honestly. Good. And it's very rewarding, and I call it my therapy away from therapy. So
okay, so quick advice before we end here. What advice would you give to anybody that's looking to maybe open that journey of mental health?
Well, one, I would say that I'm really proud of them for just even taking the time to acknowledge or recognize that they need support, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you or you're any, less than another individual. And I think that that's really courageous. And so I would first, say like how proud I am of them. And two, I would say, to do their research on what type of therapy they would like. Maybe would they like somebody that's online? Maybe would they like somebody in person? Would they like to see their therapist once a week or every other week or once a month? Like, take a moment to visualize that. Then once they know that, I would like them to, this is just obviously advice, but maybe think about what type of therapist would they feel comfortable with? Mm-hmm. Would they be comfortable with a female, a person of color? Kind of think of it. They don't have to know the answers, but just think about it. And lastly, I would like them to do, just know that it's going to be a process and everybody's process is different, and that's okay. And that's pretty much my biggest advice. Knowing that it is beautiful. It does take work. We gotta put in our work. And it's like if we want to lose weight and then we get weight loss surgery and then we go and we're eating McDonald's every day. Okay, I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna. We gotta do our work. We gotta do our part.
And there's no shortcuts.
Yes, but the end is so rewarding and so worth it. You're gonna be so proud of yourself. You're going to feel better, like not only mentally, but physically, right? We talked about the trauma in the body and how it's stored. Like literally, I kid you not, a year ago, I would get sick like every week. Like I was like, am I dying or what's going on? And I was like, something's wrong. And now like I rarely get sick. So it impacts you. Your mental health impacts you in so many ways. So It's really important to take it serious and to give yourself that empathy and that care that you need and you deserve.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I know you'll be back soon. Yes. We'll be a little more organized.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks for doing this.
Oh, of course.
Where can we find you? Just shout out your...
Yes. Yeah. I haven't been active as much, but I am hoping to grow it this year. But you can find me at Irene y Salud Mental and on Instagram. I haven't made a TikTok or anything yet, but I hope to make one in the future. But you can find me there. And if you go in my profile, if you want to have me as your therapist, there's a few platforms that I use and you can book with me online. So yeah, thank you.
Cool. Thank you.